Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the English Podcast, where we help you improve your English skills while diving into important and inspiring topics. My name is Adam, and I am here with my wonderful co-host, Julia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are thrilled to have you here for another episode where we not only talk about learning English, but also touch on topics that can truly make a difference in your life. Today's topic is incredibly inspiring and very close to our hearts.
That's right, Julia. Today we are discussing Believe in Yourself, the Key to Success. This is a topic that resonates with so many people, no matter where they are in life or what their goals may be. Believing in yourself is not just a phrase or a motivational quote. It's a way of thinking, a mindset, and a tool that can help you overcome challenges and achieve great things.
Absolutely. And what's even more exciting is that we have a very special guest with us today. We're so honored to welcome Liam to the podcast. Liam is an entrepreneur and motivational speaker who has overcome many challenges in his life by believing in himself and working hard to achieve his dreams. Liam, welcome to the English Globe.
Thank you so much, Julia and Adam. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan of this podcast, and I love how you're inspiring so many people to not only learn English, but also to believe in their potential. I'm really excited to dive into this important topic with you both.
We're excited too, Liam. You have such an inspiring story, and we know our listeners will gain so much from hearing about your journey. But before we get into your personal experiences, let's take a moment to outline what we'll be covering in today's episode, so that our listeners know what to expect.
Yes, let's. First, we're going to talk about what self-belief really means. It's a simple concept, but it's often misunderstood. We'll break it down into easy-to-understand ideas so everyone can follow along, even if English is not their first language.
After that, we'll discuss why self-belief is so important. It's not just a feel-good idea. It's a practical mindset that can help you achieve success in your personal and professional life. We'll explore how it connects to confidence, motivation, and resilience.
And we know that many of you listening might be thinking, that sounds great, but how do I actually believe in myself? Don't worry, we've got you covered. We'll share some practical steps and strategies you can use to build self-confidence and overcome self-doubt no matter where you are in your journey.
Finally, we'll hear some powerful success stories about people who achieved amazing things simply because they chose to believe in themselves. Liam will share his own experiences, and we'll also talk about some famous examples to inspire you even more.
This episode is packed with insights and advice, and by the end of it, we hope you'll feel not only motivated, but also equipped with the tools to start believing in yourself a little more each day.
That's such an important point, Julia. Self-belief isn't something that happens overnight. It's a journey. And I hope my story and our conversation today will encourage everyone listening to take that first step toward believing in their own abilities.
Well said, Liam. So whether you're listening to this podcast to improve your English, to find some inspiration, or maybe even both, we're here to help you. So grab a notebook if you'd like to take notes, and let's get started.
So let's dive into the heart of today's discussion, self-belief. This is such a fascinating and important topic, especially when it comes to personal growth and success. Now, you might ask, what exactly is self-belief? In simple terms, self-belief is the confidence and trust you have in your own abilities and decisions. It's about knowing deep inside that you are capable of achieving something, even if the journey is tough or uncertain. It's not about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about trusting yourself to figure things out along the way. Self-belief doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes. It means that when you do, you know you can learn from them and keep moving forward.
That's such a clear and powerful definition, Julia. And I'd like to add that self-belief isn't just a feeling. It's a mindset, a way of thinking that influences how you see the world and how you respond to challenges. When you believe in yourself, you approach tasks and opportunities with a sense of optimism and determination. You don't let fear or self-doubt stop you because you trust that you can handle whatever comes your way. And this mindset isn't just useful. It's essential for achieving your goals. Think about it. How can you reach for something if you don't believe you're capable of grabbing it? Self-belief is what fuels action, and action is what leads to success.
Exactly, Adam. And it's worth noting that self-belief doesn't have to be something you're born with. Many people think, oh, I'm just not a confident person. But self-belief is something you can develop over time. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. But let's hear from our guest, Liam, on this. Liam, what's your perspective on self-belief? How would you describe it? And how has it played a role in your life?
Thank you, Julia. For me, self-belief is the foundation of everything I've accomplished in life. I grew up in a small town where opportunities were limited. And for a long time, I thought success was something that happened to other people, not someone like me. But over time, I realized that the only way I could change my circumstances was by changing the way I saw myself. Self-belief, for me, started as a small, quiet voice that said, "Maybe you can do this." It wasn't loud or overpowering at first. It was just a tiny seed of hope. But I nurtured it. I took small steps, achieved small wins, and every time I succeeded, that voice grew louder. Over the years, I've learned that self-belief is like your internal compass. It doesn't mean you'll never feel lost or confused, but it gives you the confidence to keep moving forward, even when the path isn't clear.
That's such a powerful perspective, Liam. Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of our listeners can relate to what you said about self-belief starting as a small voice. It's not about waking up one day and suddenly being full of confidence. It's about cultivating that belief over time, step by step. And as you mentioned, once you start believing in yourself, it opens up so many possibilities. You start to take risks you wouldn't have taken before. You start to say yes to opportunities that once seemed out of reach. Self-belief isn't just about thinking you can succeed. It's about giving yourself permission to try, even if you're scared or uncertain.
That's such an important point, Adam. And it's also worth mentioning that self-belief isn't about ignoring your weaknesses or pretending you don't have challenges. It's about recognizing those challenges and saying, yes, this is difficult, but I can handle it. It's about being realistic, but also optimistic. And speaking of optimism, let's talk about some real-life examples of people who achieved incredible things because they believed in themselves. Liam, do you have any examples or stories that come to mind?
Absolutely, Julia. One story that always inspires me is that of J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Before she became one of the most successful authors in the world, she faced so many obstacles. She was a single mother, struggling financially, and her manuscript was rejected by multiple publishers. But she didn't give up. She believed in her story and in her ability to share it with the world. That belief kept her going, even when things seemed impossible. And because she didn't give up, she eventually found a publisher who believed in her work as much as she did. Her story is a testament to the power of self-belief and persistence.
That's such an inspiring example, Liam. And it really highlights the fact that self-belief doesn't guarantee immediate success. It's not about avoiding rejection or failure. It's about persevering through those challenges because you believe in your own potential. Another example that comes to mind is Thomas Edison. He's famous for inventing the light bulb, but what many people don't know is that he failed thousands of times before he succeeded. When asked about those failures, he reportedly said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That kind of mindset is the essence of self-belief. It's about seeing every setback as a step toward success.
That's so true, Adam. And I think these stories show that self-belief isn't just about achieving big, dramatic successes. It's also about the small, everyday victories, the times when you choose to keep going, even when it's hard. Whether it's learning a new skill, starting a new job, or even learning a new language like English, self-belief is what helps you take that first step and keep moving forward.
Absolutely, Julia. And I'd like to add that self-belief doesn't mean you have to do everything alone. Sometimes believing in yourself means surrounding yourself with people who support and encourage you. It means seeking out mentors, friends, or even podcasts like this one to help you stay motivated. Self-belief is personal, but it's also something that can grow when you're part of a supportive community.
That's a great point, Liam. And I think that's a perfect note to wrap up this part of our discussion. Self-belief is about trusting yourself, staying resilient, and taking action. It's a journey, not a destination, and it's something we can all cultivate, no matter where we are in life.
Now that we've explored the meaning and importance of self-belief, let's shift gears and talk about the challenges that can make it difficult to believe in yourself. Because let's be honest, self-belief doesn't always come easily. There are obstacles, both external and internal, that can shake your confidence and make you question your abilities. One of the biggest challenges in my experience is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. These emotions can feel overwhelming and stop you from even trying. It's natural to feel afraid when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, but when fear becomes too strong, it can paralyze you and keep you from moving forward. Another common challenge is self-doubt. Self-doubt is that little voice in your head that says, "What if I'm not good enough? What if I make a mistake? What if people laugh at me?" It's a voice that many of us hear, and it can be incredibly discouraging. The tricky thing about self-doubt is that it often feels very real. Even if you have the skills or knowledge to succeed, self-doubt can make you believe that you don't. And finally, there's criticism. This can come from other people, friends, family, colleagues, or even from yourself. When someone tells you, "You can't do that," or "You're not good enough," it can hurt, especially if you already have doubts. But sometimes, the harshest criticism comes from within. How often do we criticize ourselves for not being perfect or for making mistakes? That inner critic can be one of the hardest challenges to overcome.
Those are such important points, Julia. Fear, self-doubt, and criticism are challenges that we all face at some point, and they can feel so personal and isolating. But the truth is, these challenges are universal. Everyone, no matter how successful they are, has experienced them in one form or another. Liam, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You've talked about your journey to self-belief, but were there moments when you struggled with these challenges? How did you deal with them?
Oh, absolutely, Adam. Struggling with self-doubt and fear was a big part of my journey. In fact, I think it's something that never completely goes away. You just get better at managing it. Let me share a personal story. When I was starting my first business, I had so many doubts. I didn't have a lot of experience, and I was constantly questioning whether I was making the right decisions. I remember one night in particular when I was sitting at my desk, looking at a long list of things I needed to do, and I just felt completely overwhelmed. The thought crossed my mind, what if I fail? What if this whole thing is a mistake? But then I realized something important. I realized that failing wouldn't be the end of the world. If I failed, I could learn from it and try again. That mindset shift was a turning point for me. I stopped seeing failure as something to fear and started seeing it as an opportunity to grow. And as for self-doubt, I found that the best way to quiet that inner voice was to take action. Even if I wasn't 100% confident, I told myself, just take the next step. You don't have to know everything right now. Just focus on what's in front of you.
That's such a powerful story, Liam. I love what you said about reframing failure as an opportunity to grow. It's such a healthy and constructive way to think about challenges. And I think your point about taking action is so important. Often self-doubt becomes louder when we're stuck in our own heads, overthinking everything. But when we start taking steps, even small ones, it builds momentum and helps us feel more capable.
Exactly, Julia. And that brings me to some practical tips for overcoming these challenges. Let's start with fear. One strategy that has helped me is breaking big, scary goals into smaller, manageable steps. For example, if you're learning English and you're afraid of speaking in front of others, don't start with a big speech. Start with a simple conversation with a friend or family member. Celebrate those small victories, and as your confidence grows, you can tackle bigger challenges. Another tip is to challenge negative thoughts. When you catch yourself thinking, "I can't do this," ask yourself, Is that really true? Often our fears and doubts are based on assumptions, not facts. Replace those negative thoughts with more positive and realistic ones. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," try saying, "This is hard, but I'm learning and improving every day."
That's such good advice, Adam. And I think it's also important to surround yourself with positive influences. If you're constantly around people who doubt you or criticize you, it's going to be harder to believe in yourself. Look for people who support and encourage you, friends, mentors, or even a community like the listeners of this podcast. And don't forget to celebrate your own achievements, no matter how small they might seem. Every step forward is progress, and it's worth recognizing.
I couldn't agree more, Julia. I found that gratitude can also be a powerful tool for overcoming fear and self-doubt. When I focus on what I'm grateful for, whether it's the skills I have, the people who support me, or the progress I've made, it shifts my perspective. Instead of dwelling on what I don't have or what could go wrong, I feel more positive and motivated to keep going.
That's such a valuable tip, Liam. Gratitude really does change the way we see things. And I think it ties back to the idea that self-belief isn't about being perfect or fearless. It's about being kind to yourself, staying persistent, and focusing on progress rather than perfection.
Absolutely, Adam. And to our listeners, we want you to remember that it's okay to feel afraid or doubtful sometimes. These feelings are normal, but they don't define you. What matters is how you respond to them. So, the next time you face a challenge, take a deep breath, remind yourself of your strengths, and take that first step forward. You've got this.
We've talked about self-belief and the challenges that come with it, but now let's focus on something just as important: how to build self-confidence. Confidence doesn't magically appear overnight. It's something we develop through consistent effort, small wins, and the right mindset. Julia, why don't you start us off? What are some simple strategies that beginners can use to build confidence, whether they're learning English, pursuing a career goal, or tackling any new challenge?
Absolutely, Adam. Building self-confidence starts with setting small, achievable goals. When you're trying to grow your confidence, starting with something too big can feel overwhelming and discouraging. Let's say you're learning English. Instead of aiming to have a full conversation right away, start with learning 10 new words a week. Practice using those words in simple sentences. When you achieve that goal, you'll feel a sense of accomplishment. And that feeling is incredibly motivating. Another strategy I recommend is to step out of your comfort zone little by little. For example, if you're nervous about speaking English in front of others, start by practicing in front of a mirror. Then, record yourself speaking so you can hear your progress. Gradually, you can try speaking with a friend or joining a language exchange group. Each small step will build your confidence and show you that you're capable of more than you think. Finally, don't underestimate the power of positive self-talk. Our thoughts have a huge impact on how we feel and what we do. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," try saying, "I'm learning and I'm getting better every day." Replace those negative thoughts with encouraging ones, and over time, you'll start to believe in your abilities.
Those are great points, Julia. Small goals, stepping out of your comfort zone, and positive self-talk. These are all powerful strategies. And I think celebrating small wins is just as important. When we're working toward a big goal, it's easy to focus on how far we still have to go. But taking a moment to acknowledge the progress we've made can make a big difference in how confident we feel. For example, if you've been learning English for a month, look back and think about how much you've improved. Maybe you've learned 50 new words or had your first conversation in English. Celebrate that. Reward yourself, even if it's something small like treating yourself to your favorite snack or writing down your achievement in a journal. These celebrations reinforce the idea that your efforts are paying off, which motivates you to keep going.
I completely agree, Adam. Celebrating small wins has been a game changer for me personally. When I was younger, I used to focus only on the end goal, and if I didn't achieve it quickly, I'd feel discouraged. But when I started breaking my goals into smaller steps and celebrating each milestone, I noticed a huge boost in my confidence. One tip I'd like to share is to practice visualization. Before starting something new, take a few minutes to close your eyes and imagine yourself succeeding. Picture yourself speaking confidently in English, nailing a presentation, or accomplishing whatever goal you have. This simple exercise can help you feel more prepared and confident because your mind starts to believe that success is possible. Another tip is to take care of your physical health. It might sound unrelated, but confidence is closely tied to how we feel physically. Regular exercise, eating well, and getting enough sleep can boost your energy levels and make you feel more capable. When you feel good physically, it's easier to feel good mentally.
That's such a great point, Liam. Confidence really is a combination of mental and physical well-being. And I love what you said about visualization. It's such a simple but powerful tool that anyone can use. I'd also add that it's important to surround yourself with supportive people. If you're constantly around negative or critical voices, it's going to be harder to believe in yourself. Find friends, mentors, or even online communities that encourage and uplift you. And remember, it's okay to ask for help. Sometimes, just having someone believe in you can make all the difference.
That's so true, Julia. Supportive people can provide encouragement and also remind you of your strengths when you forget them. And speaking of reminders, I think it's important to keep track of your progress. One way to do this is by keeping a confidence journal. Each day, write down one thing you did well or one thing you're proud of. Over time, you'll have a record of your achievements that you can look back on whenever you're feeling doubtful. Another habit I'd recommend is to focus on your strengths. Instead of dwelling on what you can't do yet, think about what you already do well. For example, if you're learning English, maybe you're great at writing but struggle with speaking. Celebrate your writing skills and use them as a foundation to build your confidence in other areas.
I love that idea, Adam. Keeping track of your progress and focusing on your strengths are fantastic ways to stay motivated. And I'd like to share one more tip. Embrace failure as part of the process. I know it sounds strange, but failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to success. Every mistake you make is an opportunity to learn and improve. When you start seeing failure as a normal part of growth, it loses its power to intimidate you.
That's such an important mindset shift, Liam. Mistakes are a natural part of learning, especially when it comes to something like learning a new language. If you're afraid of making mistakes, you might hold yourself back from trying. But the truth is, every mistake brings you one step closer to success.
Absolutely, Julia. And to all our listeners, we want to remind you that building self-confidence is a journey. It's not about being perfect or fearless. It's about taking small steps, celebrating your progress, and believing in your ability to grow. Start with the tips we've shared today, and remember that every step forward, no matter how small, is a step in the right direction.
Well said, Adam. And remember, confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build over time. So be patient with yourself, stay consistent, and don't give up. You're stronger and more capable than you realize.
That's such a great message to end this segment, Liam. To our listeners, we believe in you, and we know you can do this. Take it one day at a time, and don't forget to celebrate your wins along the way.
Now that we've discussed strategies to build self-confidence, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how believing in yourself can truly change your life. There's something powerful about hearing real-life stories of people who've overcome challenges and achieved success simply by trusting in their abilities. Liam, I know you've got a personal story that really captures the essence of this. Could you share it with us?
Of course, Adam. My journey is one that I honestly didn't think I'd ever share in a public forum like this. But if it can inspire even one person, it's worth it. Growing up, I was not the confident person you see today. In fact, I was filled with doubt, constantly comparing myself to others. I was the kid who always sat at the back of the classroom, afraid to speak up because I thought my ideas weren't good enough. When I was around 18, I discovered a passion for public speaking, but even the idea of standing in front of a crowd terrified me. I remember my first attempt. It was a complete disaster. My hands were shaking, my voice cracked, and I forgot half of what I had prepared. I walked off that stage feeling like I would never try again. But something inside me said, this can't be it. You can do better. I started small, practicing in front of a mirror, then in front of my family. Eventually, I joined a local group where I could practice public speaking in a supportive environment. Each time I spoke, I got a little better. I made mistakes, yes, but I learned from them. Fast forward a few years and I found myself standing on a much bigger stage, delivering a keynote speech to an audience of over 500 people. The journey from that terrified teenager to a confident speaker wasn't easy, but it taught me the power of believing in myself. Every time I faced doubt, I reminded myself of the progress I had made and the small wins that got me there.
That's such a beautiful story, Liam. It really shows how resilience and self-belief can transform not just your confidence, but your entire life. I think a lot of our listeners will relate to that feeling of self-doubt and fear. And hearing how you work through it step by step is so inspiring.
Absolutely, Julia. Liam, thank you for sharing that. It's a reminder that even the most confident people have struggled at some point. And it's not just about overcoming fear, it's about learning and growing through the process. I'd like to add another story, one that many of you may have heard about, the story of Oprah Winfrey. Oprah's journey to success is a powerful example of self-belief. She grew up in poverty and faced numerous challenges, including rejection and setbacks early in her career. She was even told she wasn't fit for television. But instead of letting those criticisms define her, she believed in her potential and worked tirelessly to improve. Today, she's one of the most influential people in the world, not just because of her talent, but because she believed she could overcome any obstacle.
That's such a great example, Adam. And I have another one, J.K. Rowling. Most people know her as the author of the Harry Potter series, but what they might not know is how many times she was rejected before her first book was published. She was living in difficult circumstances, a single mother on welfare, and faced rejection from 12 publishers. But she didn't give up. She believed in her story and her ability to make it a success. That self-belief is what carried her through those tough times and eventually led to her becoming one of the most successful authors of all time.
Both of those stories are so powerful, and they highlight something important. Success isn't about having a smooth path. It's about persevering through the challenges. I'd like to add one more example, Elon Musk. Whether you admire him for his work with Tesla and SpaceX or not, his journey is undeniably rooted in self-belief. Early in his career, he faced failures that would have made most people quit. Tesla nearly went bankrupt, and several of SpaceX's rocket launches failed. But he kept going because he believed in his vision and his ability to achieve it.
What's interesting about all these stories is that they show self-belief isn't just about confidence, it's also about persistence. Believing in yourself doesn't mean you won't face obstacles or setbacks. It means you trust that you can find a way forward, no matter how hard things get.
Exactly, Adam. And I think it's important to point out that these people didn't start with everything figured out. They faced rejection, failure, and doubt, just like all of us do. But what made the difference was their determination to keep going and their refusal to give up on themselves.
And that's something anyone can do. You don't have to be a famous author, a billionaire entrepreneur, or a global icon to believe in yourself. You can start small, like setting a goal, learning a new skill, or even just taking the first step towards something you've always wanted to do. The key is to keep going, even when it feels tough.
I think this is such an important message for our listeners. Whether you're learning English, pursuing a career goal, or trying to build a new habit, remember that every step counts. You're going to face challenges, but if you believe in yourself, you can overcome them.
And don't forget to find inspiration in the stories of others. If they can do it, so can you. Whether it's Liam's journey, Oprah's resilience, or J.K. Rowling's persistence, these stories are proof that self-belief is the foundation of success.
That's right, Julia. And to everyone listening, never underestimate your potential. You're capable of so much more than you realize, and the first step is to believe in yourself.
Beautifully said, Liam. On that note, let's take a quick break before we move into our next segment. where we'll explore practical ways to keep self-belief alive in your daily life. Welcome back, everyone. We hope you're enjoying today's episode of The English Globe, where we're diving deep into the power of self-belief. It's been such an inspiring discussion so far, but now it's time for one of our favorite parts of the show, the Q&A session.
That's right, Adam. Throughout the week, we've been collecting questions from our listeners, and today, Liam is here to answer some of them. These are questions directly related to self-belief, and we're excited to hear Liam's thoughts. So, Liam, are you ready?
Absolutely, Julia. I'm thrilled to see what our listeners are curious about. Let's get into it. That's a great question, Sarah, and it's something I think everyone can relate to at some point. Self-belief isn't about never feeling doubt. It's about how you respond to those moments of doubt. One strategy that has worked for me is to remind myself of my past successes, no matter how small they might seem. When I was preparing for my first big public speaking event, I was overwhelmed with fear and self-doubt. But instead of focusing on the fear, I made a list of all the small steps I had taken to get to that point, like joining a local speaking group and practicing in front of friends. Seeing those accomplishments on paper gave me a sense of progress and reminded me that I was capable. Another tip is to reframe challenges as opportunities. When you hit a roadblock, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this experience? By shifting your perspective, you can turn challenges into stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks.
That's such valuable advice, Liam. I love the idea of reframing challenges. It's a reminder that self-belief is a process, not a destination.
Absolutely. Let's move on to our next question, which comes from Roberto in Mexico City. He says, Liam, I always compare myself to others, especially when I see people achieving things that I want to achieve. How do I stop feeling like I'm not good enough?
Roberto, comparison is something many of us struggle with, especially in today's world with social media. It's so easy to look at someone else's highlight reel and feel like you're falling behind. But here's the truth. Everyone's journey is different, and success isn't a one-size-fits-all concept. One thing that has helped me is to focus on my own progress rather than someone else's. Ask yourself, am I better today than I was yesterday? If the answer is yes, then you're moving in the right direction. Celebrate those small victories instead of comparing yourself to someone who might be at a completely different stage in their journey. Another thing to remember is that the people you admire have likely faced their own struggles and doubts. What you see is the result of hard work and persistence, not overnight success. Instead of comparing, use their achievements as inspiration. Think, if they can do it, so can I.
That's such a positive way to look at it, Liam. Comparison can be so damaging, but turning it into inspiration can make all the difference.
Completely agree. Okay, here's the next question. This one is from Priya in Mumbai. She asks, what's your advice for someone who wants to start building self-belief but doesn't know where to begin?
That's a fantastic question, Priya. Building self-belief can seem overwhelming at first, but the key is to start small. Begin by setting achievable goals, things that push you slightly out of your comfort zone but are still realistic. For example, if you're learning English, set a goal to learn 5 new words a day or have a short conversation with a friend. Once you achieve that goal, take a moment to acknowledge your success. It doesn't matter how small the win is. What matters is that you did it. Over time, these small wins add up and create a sense of confidence and self-belief. Another important step is to surround yourself with positive influences. Whether it's friends who encourage you, books that inspire you, or podcasts like this one, having a supportive environment can make a huge difference. Finally, don't be afraid to celebrate your progress. Every step forward is a victory, and you deserve to recognize that. Self-belief is built one step at a time, so take it day by day.
Such practical advice, Liam. Starting small and celebrating progress is something anyone can do, and it's a great way to build momentum.
Agreed. We've got time for one last question. This one comes from Angela in Sydney. She says, Liam, how do you handle criticism without letting it affect your confidence?
That's a tough one, Angela, but a very important question. Criticism can be hard to hear, especially when you're putting yourself out there. The first thing to remember is that not all criticism is bad. Some feedback can help you grow and improve, so It's important to differentiate between constructive criticism and negativity. When I receive criticism, I ask myself two questions. Is this feedback coming from someone I respect? And is it something I can learn from? If the answer is yes, I take it as an opportunity to improve. If the answer is no, if it's just negativity or meant to tear me down, I remind myself that it says more about the other person than it does about me. Another strategy is to focus on your long-term goals. Criticism might sting in the moment, but it doesn't define your worth or your abilities. Stay focused on what you want to achieve and use the feedback, if it's helpful, to get better.
That's such a healthy way to look at criticism, Liam. It's all about learning and growing without letting negativity hold you back.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of our Q&A session. Liam, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and personal experiences. I know our listeners will find this incredibly helpful.
Thank you, Adam and Julia. It's been an absolute pleasure being here and connecting with all of you. To everyone listening, remember, self-belief isn't about being perfect. It's about embracing your journey and trusting that you have what it takes to succeed.
Beautifully said, Liam. And thank you to our listeners for sending in such thoughtful questions.
Stay tuned, everyone, as we wrap up today's episode with some final thoughts and a powerful message to keep you motivated. Don't go anywhere.
It's been an incredible journey discussing the power of self-belief today. We've explored what it means, why it's so important, and how to build it step by step. But before we close, we want to leave you with some practical tips, simple, actionable ideas that you can take away and start using in your daily life to strengthen your self-belief.
That's right, Julia. Sometimes even the most inspiring ideas can feel overwhelming if we don't know where to begin. So let's break it down into easy steps. I'll share 3 specific tips you can start using right after this podcast.
Perfect. But first, let me quickly summarize the key points we've covered in this episode. We started by defining self-belief as having confidence in your abilities and trusting yourself to achieve your goals. We talked about its importance, not just for success, but for personal growth and happiness. Then, we dove into strategies for overcoming challenges like fear and self-doubt, and Liam shared his personal journey of triumph through self-belief. We also discussed ways to build self-confidence, from setting small, achievable goals to celebrating victories along the way. And let's not forget those inspirational stories of people who succeeded because they believed in themselves, proving that self-belief is truly transformative.
Well said, Julia. Now, let's talk about putting this knowledge into practice. Here are 3 actionable tips to start believing in yourself today. First, start with small, manageable goals. When you set a goal, make sure it's something realistic and achievable. For example, if you're learning English, you could aim to learn 5 new words a day or practice speaking for 10 minutes with a friend. Completing these small goals will give you a sense of accomplishment and build your confidence over time. Second, replace negative self-talk with positive affirmations. Pay attention to your inner voice. Are you being overly critical of yourself? If so, challenge those thoughts. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," try saying, "I'm learning and I'll get better with time." Positive affirmations might feel strange at first, but they can have a powerful impact on your mindset. Third, visualize your success. Take a few minutes each day to close your eyes and imagine yourself achieving your goals. Picture the details, how it looks, how it feels, and what you'll do once you succeed. Visualization can help train your brain to stay focused and motivated, even during tough times.
Those are fantastic tips, Adam. Simple, practical, and easy to implement. And now let's turn to Liam for his favorite motivational quote and some parting advice for our listeners.
Thanks, Julia. One quote that has always inspired me comes from Nelson Mandela. "It always seems impossible until it's done." This quote reminds me that challenges often feel insurmountable at first, but with persistence and self-belief, we can overcome them. I've experienced this in my own life countless times. Whether it was starting my first business or facing a personal fear, the key was to take the first step and keep going, no matter how uncertain the path seemed. My advice to all of you listening is to be kind to yourself during this process. Building self-belief isn't about being perfect. It's about progress. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, focus on your strengths, and celebrate even the smallest wins. And remember, self-belief is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
That's such a powerful message, Liam. I love the idea of treating self-belief as a muscle that grows stronger with practice.
Absolutely. To all our listeners, we want to remind you that self-belief is something you can develop over time. It's not about never feeling doubt or fear. It's about finding ways to move forward despite those feelings.
And with these tips, you have the tools to start building your self-belief today. Take it one step at a time, and remember, we're here to support you on your journey.
Thank you, Liam, for sharing your wisdom and experiences with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Adam and Julia. It's been a joy to be here, and I hope these tips inspire our listeners to believe in themselves and pursue their dreams.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us for this empowering episode of the English Globe. Stay tuned for our final wrap-up and a motivational send-off to end today's show on a high note.
Well, everyone, we've come to the end of another inspiring episode of the English Globe. Today's topic: believe in yourself. The key to success has been an incredible journey of reflection, learning, and motivation. We've had the privilege of diving deep into what it means to believe in yourself, why it's so important, and how you can cultivate this empowering mindset.
That's right, Adam. And let's not forget, we couldn't have done it without our amazing guest, Liam. Liam, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your wisdom, and your heartfelt advice with us.
Thank you, Julia and Adam. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. Sharing my story and connecting with all of you has been truly meaningful. I hope our listeners feel inspired to take that first step toward building their self-belief.
Oh, I'm sure they do, Liam. Your story and insights were not only motivational but also practical, something everyone can take and apply to their own lives.
Absolutely, Adam. And to all our listeners, remember, self-belief isn't just a concept we talk about. It's something you can practice every day. Start small, be kind to yourself, and celebrate your progress. Whether it's learning English, pursuing a dream, or simply overcoming a fear, believing in yourself is the foundation for success.
And here's the key. Self-belief is like a habit. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Every little step forward builds momentum, and before you know it, you're achieving things you once thought were impossible.
We encourage you to take a moment today to think about one small step you can take toward believing in yourself. Maybe it's setting a new goal, journaling your thoughts, or even just repeating a positive affirmation. Whatever it is, start today and keep going.
And remember, we're here with you on this journey. At the English Globe, we're not just teaching English. We're building a community of learners who support and inspire each other.
Speaking of community, we'd love to hear from you. If you've enjoyed this episode or have your own stories of self-belief to share, reach out to us. Your feedback, questions, and experiences mean the world to us.
You can connect with us on our website or social media platforms. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Speaking of which, Julia, do you want to give our listeners a sneak peek of what's coming next?
Of course! In our next episode, we're diving into the topic, how to set goals and stay motivated. We'll talk about effective goal-setting techniques, ways to track your progress, and how to keep that fire of motivation alive, even during tough times.
It's going to be a fantastic episode, packed with tips and stories to help you stay on track toward your dreams. So make sure to tune in. It's one you won't want to miss.
Before we wrap up, let's give Liam the last word. Liam, do you have any parting advice or thoughts for our listeners?
Thank you, Julia. My final message to everyone is this: believe that you're capable, even when it feels hard. Success doesn't happen overnight, but it always starts with a belief that you can achieve it. Trust yourself, take small steps, and don't be afraid to celebrate how far you've come. You're stronger and more capable than you realize.
That's such a beautiful note to end on. Thank you, Liam, for being part of this journey with us.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us today. You are the heart of the English globe, and we're so grateful to have you here. Keep learning, keep believing in yourself, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and remember, the key to success lies within you.